All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Thrilling 30 Jhiaxus. And yeah, this is an interesting figure. Now, obviously, this guy is a retool from the Thrilling 30 Armada Starscream from that time period. And in the comics, because, like, again, the Thrilling 30 line definitely had a lot of, like, IDW comic inspiration. In the comics, like, he wasn't based on IDW Jhiaxus, but eventually the design for IDW Jhiaxus did change to be more like this guy, because I guess Jhiaxus had some like power absorption power or something in the comics, and he used that to, like, take some power from Starscream, who had his like Armada form at the time, and he got like armor that was kind of based on the Armada Starscream armor. It was a weird thing. I don't really remember. It happened during the Dark Cybertron storyline. So that was just kind of like a, in-universe justification for why he looks like, that version of Starscream at the time, which I guess I appreciate in terms of the like the continuity or whatever. But the other big thing about this figure is rather than being Jhiaxus colors, which is of course like the yellow, white, and green, he is just bright orange for some reason. Like I get where the orange came from, because the only previous Jhiaxus toy which had ever been made was just a like bright orange repaint of Beast Machine's Jetstorm, which again really didn't have anything to do with the Jhiaxus character from the G2 Marvel comics. But it was just like a way to acquire the trademark at the time. So it's super weird that they made the decision to like, give him this orange color scheme. I don't really know why they would choose to do that rather than the more, well-known color scheme for Jhiaxus. And it was like, they never, like occasionally they would, and this was really even more like before Thrilling 30, but occasionally Hasbro would like seemingly purposefully give characters kind of the wrong color scheme, just so like you'd buy the figure and then you'd buy it again from Takara, which had the more accurate color scheme. Like the one that really comes to mind is like Universe Dinobot, where they like the Hasbro version had purple instead of blue, and it's just like, what, why? And then of course the more expensive Japanese version had the blue. But I don't think that they ever even did a Japanese repaint of this guy into like the more traditional Jhiaxus colors. So this was the only one we ever got, to the best of my knowledge. Yeah, all that being said, he's a decent figure in and of himself. I do like the jet mode here. It definitely is, it reshapes the Armada Starscream design a little bit. He's got like different tail fins here, different cockpit section. I think the wings are slightly different, but I can't totally remember. Yeah, no, he's a decent jet mode here. He does have landing gear that fold out from the back here, and one that folds out from the front, which just snapped in half the very first time I transformed this guy. So I don't really know if that's just like a defective thing on mine, that this is like super tight and that's what caused it to snap, or what, or if I was just like, not doing it the right way. But it's fine. It's whatever. Yeah, he also does come with the again, Armada Starscream-esque like missile launchers on the top here, which have this they're not spring loaded. You just push this in and they're like the flick fire missiles with the ball joint there. But the compression of that piece is what causes them to actually launch. And yeah, they launch pretty well. It's honestly better than a lot of spring loaded stuff. But yeah, and weirdly enough, they kind of like click in twice. I don't know what about the mechanism makes them do that, but it's kind of neat. He also, because he's a resculpt of the Armada Starscream, he does have minicon ports on the top, so you can plug a minicon onto him for whatever that's worth, whatever. And then he comes with two guns here, which are just kind of like average looking guns here, but they work well enough. I appreciate that he comes with two of them so they can actually store symmetrically, because you do just plug them onto the wings here, and basically this little peg here will go into, or this little slot here is for this 3mm peg, and then this little carved out section is for the top section of the gun here. So you can just peg those onto to either sides. It's not like the tightest connection in the world. Like, it stays just fine, but I find that like when I have this guy like in a bin with other figures, those guns always come off real easy. But But yeah, no, I think that that looks pretty good, and it's nice weapon storage. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, just for a standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe. Obviously, I mean, Cybertronian-ish jet, but they still don't really scale. Here he is for another deluxe jet comparison with Needle Nose from Legacy Evolution. Who can remember? That's what the two of them look like together. And then here he is with our most recent version of Jhiaxus, who is, of course, a Voyager and is much more like heavily based on the G2 version colors and all. And yeah, no, this guy's definitely a much better figure in general and a much better, representation of Jhiaxus. But, this guy was kind of fun for the time. But yeah, to get out of transformation, you could just leave the guns there because that's kind of where they can store in robot mode as well. But I'll take them off for now. Yeah, first thing you want to start with is the arms and the wings here kind of like tabbed into each other like that. So you just want to bring the arms out of the way so that you have the clearance to take these back sections, which will be the legs, and just untab them like that, unfold them, and rotate them forward, and then rotate down the foot and flip out the heel. And there you have the legs pretty much all done. Then you want to take this little orange panel here and flip that forward, which thankfully hides his face in jet mode. And then you can take the nose cone section here and just fold it in like that, and then push the head through. Sometimes it just kind of does it automatically. Yeah, there we go. You flip it down like that, and then you take the whole nose cone section, and it will flip down like this and kind of like align itself to, have, like the continuous contour there. That's something I always appreciated about this guy compared to the Armada Starscream version. And then you can just flip out his hands here. You can leave these up if you want, or flip them onto his back, which I appreciate. And then the wings kind of have to come down with that because there's just not the clearance for them to stay up otherwise. And there we have Jhiaxus in his robot mode. And yeah, it's a decent looking robot mode. Again, obviously the main gripe here is that he's not really Jhiaxus colors. He also is not like super based on, his look doesn't really look super Jhiaxus in terms of like the body style. But the head sculpt's good. It unfortunately doesn't have quite enough paint on there. Like, I don't know why they just decided to like cut off the gray paint like just below his cheeks rather than like all the way up to his eyes. And it would have been nice to have like some sort of dark paint in the mouth or whatever. I've always found that like the head sculpt on this guy looks a little bit underpainted for my tastes, but the actual sculpt is decent. In terms of articulation, head's on a ball joint, so it can rotate around like that, gets a little bit of wiggle back and forth. Shoulders are on swivels here. Obviously they bump into the wings at a certain point and then hinge out to the side. He does have that little bit of sculpting there to kind of hide that the hinge is up here and actually make it look like a hydraulic thing or something like that, which is nice. It's got a bicep swivel pretty much up at the shoulder here, a 90-degree bend at the elbow. His forearms are a little bit long compared to his upper arms, but whatever. The wrists can just bend in. They look a little bit weird because he's got, like they're sculpted orange and painted gray, so you can clearly see the bright orange on the inside of his fists there, but whatever. Does he have a waist joint? I don't think so. Yeah, no waist joint. Hips are on ball joints that can go forward and back, obviously bumping into this stuff and out to the side. He's got a thigh swivel, very deep knee bend just because of how it folds up for transformation and how, hollow his back legs are. And then there's nothing really at the feet. I mean, you can tilt them forward and back, but there's no side to side angle tilt. He's just got like a slight A stance sculpt, which is actually a little bit less slight than I'd prefer because like that's how you get his feet planted on the ground, whereas you kind of want him like that, which he looks fine doing, but his feet aren't like fully planted on the ground that way. But it's fine. Obviously, in terms of weapons, you can give him these little his guns here, and he looks pretty cool holding those. They're nothing fancy. They're just kind of like, just typical, no extra gimmick accessories. And then if you want to store them, you can just plug them back onto the wings where they were in vehicle mode, and that works well enough for me. Again, it's not the tightest connection in the world, but if you're having them standing on the shelf, they're not just going to like spontaneously fall off or anything like that. So decent-ish articulation, nothing too crazy. Obviously, you can flip these up and still activate them if you want, but they stick way out the back. But, that's just kind of a typical Armada Starscream design. I don't have either the old generations Armada Starscream or the original Armada Starscream for that matter, or the newer like Armada Universe Starscream to compare him with, unfortunately. But in terms of other comparisons, here he is again with Sideswipe and Needle Nose, just so you can see what he looks like with a few average size deluxe there. Pretty much side swipe height. I guess proportionally, like his head is a little bit small in comparison to these guys. Like he looks like he should be bigger, which Jhiaxus should be a larger character, but that's what he looks like with them. And then of course here he is with our more recent Jhiaxus from Legacy Evolution. And I much prefer, can't really see him up there, but I much prefer the more like accurate comic Jhiaxus that we got recently. Obviously the colors alone and then like the size and everything, like he's just a much more faithful rendition of the character. Whereas at the time, Jhiaxus was like kind of an obscure enough character that there's just no way, no how that we would have gotten a figure of him that wasn't just a retool of something else. So it was even kind of novel at the time that we got even any sort of figure of him, and he's decent for what he is. He's just not obviously what you'd fully want out of the character, which is much more what this guy is. So as a toy, not bad. As a representation of the character, it's not great, but he's a fun toy anyway. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to him. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Generations Thrilling 30 Jhiaxus.